Good morning and welcome to Weekend Walkabout in our gardens and yours virtually. We're coming to you from gardenatozz.org.
I'm Janet McConvich.
I'm Stephen Nicola.
And we're talking today about native and natural ground covers. That's us out in the wintertime. And we have today with us, thank goodness, our daughter, Sonia Nicola, who is a great gardener, can answer most of the questions we can answer, but also, and more importantly here, is a professor at a university where they've been teaching virtually for over 2 years now, and can answer technical questions too and help you with the chat, and has fingers of steel on the chat. And today especially, her own internet is out, but she found a place to go and sit and use the internet.
She's our superhero.
Yes, definitely the Captain Marvel. We've been writing for, well, going on 40 years now. We've been writing about gardening because we've learned a lot from other people, and we find that the more we talk to other people, the more that we take questions and go researching them, the more we find out and can turn back to other people. So look for us on our website. If some of you I know have clippings still from when we wrote in the Michigan Gardener and the Detroit News. We also have a special guest with us today, our co-host Cheryl Bennerup. Cheryl, we met here in Michigan when she ran Cheryl's Gardens
in Milford,
growing perennials, a wonderful greenhouse, and selling them on Milford Road at Cheryl's Gardens.
She was kind of our first Karen Bovio.
She was indeed our first Karen Bovio. Can you grow this for us? And how can you manage that? She went back to school, got an advanced degree in horticulture, moved east with a job with a bigger nursery, and eventually married Pierre Bennerup. So she was Cheryl Burkhead, for those of you who knew her in Cheryl's Garden. She's Cheryl Bennerup now, and they retired recently from this wonderful house, surrounded by gardens, we're on the side of the house in the picture there where the vegetable gardens are. If you go out the other side of the house and walk back, you walk into a big hedged garden, big formal perennial, well, not formal, no, formal. If you go outside that hedge, if you walk through that opening back there, you get into acres of, we're talking ground cover guys here on a big scale. Just like at the nurseries, they grow lots and lots and lots of plants. So we asked Cheryl if she'd come in to help comment about ground covers, because we don't know where they're going to go. We don't know what you're going to ask. We don't know what's going to happen. We have a list of 500 some pictures, and we've got 100, I don't know if there's 100, but close to that, ground covers that we could discuss. So we got the big guns with us to help out. Thanks, Cheryl, for being here today.
Glad to be here, and glad you both were able to visit us in Connecticut.
Oh yeah,
man, what a fantastic
such a cool place. Yeah. And I got to work in the garden.
Yeah. Stephen got to.
I did. I did pruning.
That's right, and I got to work.
Yeah,
we got dirty together.
Yeah.
We're going to start this morning with our In Our Garden segment. During the snow moon time of February, we were pouncing on a thaw this week.
Boy, it was a really cool moon out with the snow the other day.
And it was a real pounce too. I was getting my clothes on to work outside, and Steve said, "Wait, I thought we were going." I said, "Nope, nope." He said, "It is right now. There is a thaw right now, and it's lasting until tomorrow at about 4 o'clock. It's going to start getting cold again, and it's supposed to rain later today. I have to go prune that crabapple now.
Forget everything else.
It needs 24 hours to finish after you clip it." Yep. So that's what we talk about on our website in our news section. What's up? This Week in Our Gardens has articles like that. And what I was working on is
our crabapple.
When we moved in, it was like so. It was enormous over the top of the house, and it was lined with, underneath it, there were burning bushes and all kinds of other stuff.
There's burning bushes right there. Big burning bushes.
I took those out. I took out a weeping Norway spruce underneath it. I took out everything that's over on the far side.
This is all gone too.
I took out everything in front of the garage. The only thing we saved is the crabapple, which I cut in half. I took it down to half its height. Because, well, okay, I like that kind of crabapple, but it takes pruning twice a year to keep it that size. It takes pruning in the winter, and it takes pruning then after it blooms in July. You see, you see there all the pieces that have grown down from it and are trying to grow up from it.
The other thing about it is that there's a window right here and it blocked our view going out the window. Now it's still there, but being pruned and kept down and thinned,
We
we
can
can
see
see out and we can see through it
And maybe
sometimes.
more importantly, the dogs can see through it.
Yes,
Boy,
that,
they
oh
need to
yeah,
see
oh, that
someplace.
would be crazy if they didn't have.
So what people always ask me, so how do you prune it? And they get up into the tree and they look and they go, ah, I have no idea what to cut. None, because it's gonna look like that after I'm done cutting that section where I've got the ladder right now. And I want to show you quickly what we do. So this is a quick pruning session. You can ask questions about it, but more importantly, the pictures are going to be up here now. You can come back to the recording and see this part.
Yes.
What we're looking for when I'm pruning to keep something small like that, and basically it's an espalier in 3D. If it was growing flat on the wall and you wanted to keep it in a shape, this is exactly what you would do. I just have to do it in 3D. Those are flower buds, the top 3 pictures. Can you see the flowering buds on the spurs? It's a member of the rose family, so it doesn't bloom on brand new wood, 1-year-old wood. It waits until it's 2 years old and it forms a spur. And there's a spur there, there's a spur there, there's a couple of spurs there, there's one old piece sticking out.
And there's no spurs.
Yeah, there's 1-year-old wood that grew last year. It grew since it bloomed last year. That's what it looks like in the winter. It's just got the little buds that are not on a spur. That's not going to bloom. And you need to look for that. You need to look and say, here I am. I'm looking at my espalier, whether I'm on the ladder doing a tree like I'm doing, whether I'm doing a little crabapple or a big crabapple. I need to look at that branch and figure out what I want to cut. And what I want to cut is like so. I'll take you through this here in a minute. I'm going to cut it down to where I remove the ascending wood. In my case, or in espalier's case, I've gotten to the top. I do not want any more branches to grow up.
Anything that's pointing up.
Yeah. So 1A, 1B, 1C, there are all branches that are growing up from my preserved branch, the branch that I kept in the tree. So I take those off.
Cut, cut, cut.
Yeah. I remove weak wood, weak, spindly, snappy stuff. That's the number 2. You can see that's a little skinny weak piece.
It was totally shaded out, doesn't have the vigorous buds on it. It's a different color, even though it's still that year's growth.
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong in doing this. There is the subjective eye of the gardener doing this. So if you look at this branch, Steve, if you point that for me, that little guy, right? Coming straight down. Yeah. You could say that's weak and take it off. I didn't. It has several flowering buds on it. You can see those spurs.
You can see spurs here.
Right. I said, that's going to flower. And no, I like that branch. It's hanging down. This is a weeping tree. I'm going to leave that. There's no right or wrong. You decide.
Yeah.
And after you've taken off what's going up and taken off the weak stuff, then you shorten the new stuff.
The number 3s.
Right. The things they're not going to bloom this year, but that's a good branch. And I'd like it to live until next year when it will bloom.
Mm-hmm.
And after a year after that and year after that. So that's what I'm doing. Taking off ascending wood, taking off the weak wood, and then shortening what I leave there that's new and not going to bloom. So this piece, for instance, if I was going to keep it, this is a piece I took off because the entire thing was coming up off of someplace else. That's all brand new wood. See, no spurs anywhere there. But if I was going to keep it, if it was in a good place, I would say, okay, I'm going to keep this. So I'm going to shorten number 1. And these are just numbered branches. I should have made them A, B, and C. I'm just going to shorten. I'm going to take 1 off all the way because it's going too far.
1 went off. 2 came off.
Took 2 off, shortened 3. And I shortened the things on the other side. And that's what you're doing. So look at this one and you tell us. Okay, there's an answer coming up next and showing what would you do here. I actually took everything there that's number 1 off. Everything there was going up. Look at the little inset picture of what it was. Everything was going up. So I could take that right off.
She was able to take this part, came right off of here, and we kept
this part, which had a couple of
spurs.
I probably left the one before. I probably left that one because it's been there more than 1 year. Most of it is 1-year wood, but that base, the this piece right there, that piece has been there more than 1 year. I probably clipped it with a long pole pruner and left a stub sitting on there, and that stub has now said, woo, I'm heading
I'm
up for the,
free.
yeah, I'm gonna keep going. But if I can maneuver my ladder into the right little holes I've left in the tree, I can see things like that and do them by hand. So
And
same thing here. This I took off because it was going sideways and I didn't really like it going sideways right there. But if it was in a good place, you could take off the weak pieces
move the ascending.
and shorten those other pieces,
Acceptable.
like so. Got it? Okay. And ideally it gets to the point where you have mostly spurs.
See, there's very little new growth on this, and it's all spurs.
Right, it's got
You
some.
can see the fruit had come.
Yeah, on an apple or a pear. Or my cousins from Russia decided to just label me crazy because I kept cutting off new wood. You have to let some new wood come back to have a strong plant that bears big apples, and they recognized apple. And they recognize we should be bearing that fruit, pruning that to bear more fruit. I said, no, I'm pruning it to make it look good. So you do have to have new wood coming somewhere, but these are the easy ones. You go, oh, wow, all I gotta do is just do a little bit, just a little bit, take off the tips.
And ideally, that's what you want to accomplish in the long run, but with crab apples, it's very difficult.
And I'll tell you, every time I approach one of these trees, whether it's a crab apple, whether it's a pear, whether it's a Japanese maple that we're pruning to keep small, I look at it and go, I can't do this. This is just too much to do. So we tell people one branch at a time, one main branch that you've left there at a time.
Pick a spot, start and stay with that one spot. Don't start going all over the place when you see something.
Right.
If a branch is coming towards you, leave it there because it's coming from another spot.
Yeah.
Unless it's dangerous to your eyes or something.
Yeah.
Work on that. Focus on your spot first.
Do one main branch at a time. I lost my. There we go. And then it's easier to do, and then it's done. It takes me about 4 hours in the winter. Takes me about 8 hours in the summer because I'm maneuvering around the plants underneath. This is one thing that at the arborist conference, they all understood when we said, and ground covers, those are those things that you arborists that tell us simply make it hard to work on trees. And that's true.
Gardeners make the arborist's job more difficult, but we appreciate them so much.
Yeah. And it does bloom because you left the flowers, and it does grow. After it blooms, by July, it's like hanging nearly down to the ground and we have to prune it again. So just so you know, that's how that happens. What questions have we got set up today? Nothing?
There was a clarification about do you prune it all at once? Do you do a little bit and then come back? And I said, unless something dramatic happens, you try and do it in a one shot. Would there be conditions or suggestions for pruning in stages?
Not in this case. It's dormant pruning, and so we're taking everything off regardless during the time that it's dormant. In this case, because it was a thaw, I needed to get that off in time that all my big cuts would have 24 hours before it really started getting cold again. And I needed to prune in the morning on that day because it was going to rain in the afternoon, and you don't want to prune when it's wet. So if it had started raining, then I might have had to leave it until the next thaw. In the July pruning, when I'm taking an awful lot off all at once, and if it happens to be a really dry period, I might wait and do a little and then do a little bit more because it's hard on a plant when there's a drought time. Otherwise, no.
And then that leads us nicely to Michelle's question about thaw. She asked, could you redefine your thaw conditions, please? I seem to remember greater than 28 degrees at nighttime, and I thought for 3 days, but she just said 24 hours. Yeah, talk thaw for us.
Your best thaw is 2 or 3 days in the winter, and we usually get them toward the end of January. Didn't get one this year, or toward the end of February. That you get about 3 days where the temperatures at night don't drop much below 28, and the temperatures during the day stay at freezing or above, and it's dry. And the reason that you want that is because branches that you've cut, especially big branches, that new exposed wood needs 24 to 48 hours to harden itself off before it drops down precipitously. In this case, we only had 2 days, 48 hours is all we had. I watched, and that's all it was going to be where it stayed in that temperature. So if I pruned at the beginning of that thaw, I'd have the 24 to 48. And that's what I was working with. I'd prefer to have the longer period. of
And one
time.
more day would have been nicer.
And especially for something that you're pruning way back, boxwood, for instance, where you're cutting everything back to dormant buds, that's exposing a lot of wood. So yeah, so I'm looking if I can for a longer period than just 2 days. I know Michelle asked earlier on when we're going to start working at the library again. It would be next week in February, because there are things we can do
Yeah.
outside. But we're still got some COVID restrictions at the library. So I'm sorry,
No,
would have
next
been
week,
last
March.
week. We did.
Yeah, would have been last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be next the second Wednesday in March. We'll be there and we'll be outside at the library working, pruning. We've got a viburnum to prune. We have a ginkgo to prune. We have an arborvitae to prune. We have a beautyberry to prune. God, we've got a lot of stuff going on.
You might
now.
do something on their bigger trees. I don't know.
That's right. And we do have the crab apple. So on the second Wednesday in March, we'll be at the Waterford Library. If you're interested, just send us an email, or better yet, call the Waterford Township Library. They put you on the list, and then you get the emails that there's no obligation, no funds, no sign up,
Yep.
no membership. You just are told when we're going to be there.
We have Squeaks chiming in from Florida, wondering what all of us thaw people are on about. But Squeaks is wondering, they have podocarpus. Can we prune anytime now?
Yeah, you can in Florida. It's the weather is settled there, and you can do that. And that podocarpus, you better stay on top of that because that'll eat your house. And I don't think, has it started growing yet? Has it started into active growth? I think it has started
It
into
might
active
have
growth.
done, yeah.
So a lot of times, once it's already started into active growth, every cut that you make just causes more bushiness. So you may want to be a little more judicious than I was. I was cutting back hard because there's a difference in cutting dormant and cutting when it's already growing. So if you don't want it to bush out, you may want to wait until it has stopped active growth and is slowed down and do your August pruning.
Mhm.
Best time to prune.
And then finally, best time to prune hydrangeas. And then we can get on to the main event.
Darn hydrangeas and pruning, they're the biggest question.
Our number one question over the years has
It
been
depends.
hydrangeas.
It depends on which hydrangea it is. If they are the summer blooming, late blooming hydrangeas like paniculata,
PG.
or the white round snowball hydrangeas, you can prune them anytime, and now is a good time to prune them. If they are the blue or pink hydrangeas, or the climbing hydrangeas, or the lace cap hydrangeas, those bloom on 2-year-old wood like the crabapple, and so you would be doing to them like you do to the crabapple.
You'd be taking away bloom if you.
Right. They don't have spurs on hydrangea, but they've got a tip bud that's the one that's going to grow on those blues and pinks, and so you would prune them like a crabapple, and that's the best we can do in a short.
And this is my time to pitch that if you are a subscriber or would like to become a subscriber, in August of 2020, we have an entire Saturday webinar exclusively on all things hydrangeas. August 1st, 2020, if you already have access to the subscriber library, and if not, subscribe with us and get your hydrangeas webinar.
And Sonia is laughing not about subscribing, but because when we gave her the list of things and she said a whole webinar just on hydrangeas, we went,
yes, trust us.
I was so wrong. I was so humbled.
So we'll move on. That's it for In Our Garden. We'll move on to native and natural ground covers. And we do this, for those of you who haven't seen us do this before, we do this now to break up the recording.
So that you don't have to watch it all at once if you only wanted the pre-webinar questions or.
So when we send you the recording, when we send you the email with the recording links, there will be one link. You can watch the whole thing if you want, but then there will be links so you can watch just this part or just our chat.
And this one will be available to everybody on the public YouTube, not just to the subscribers.